The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the DB2Night show number 215. What a run it's been. One more show after this, and then we're done. Hey, today we've got breaking news from IBM Toronto, the IBM Canada Lab. Our special guest is none other than the super cool Kelly Rodger, Senior Development Manager at the IBM Canada Lab. I'm your host, Scott Hayes, an entrepreneur, IBM Gold Consultant, and lifetime IBM champion. Mr. Kelly, how are you today?
Very good. Hi, good morning, Scott.
Good morning. Well, it's good afternoon for some and good evening for others. There's people dialed in from all over the world today to hear about the breaking news from your mighty fine company and development lab. Let's get going. DB2Night show is a show for the community. Remember to use hashtag #DB2Night, mention at DB2Night show, and we do have a LinkedIn group. If you'd like to join that, just go to bit.ly/join DB2Night show. Here's the usual disclaimers. I'll read this one more time. The DB2Night show sponsors, advertise, hosts, guests, and respective organizations of any are not responsible for any liability and the content provided here. In opinions, DB2 views and utilize the viewer's mind only using information ideas at your own risk. Use respect and courtesy when contributing to the DB2Night show via tweets, email, or as a guest. Trademarks, registered trademarks belong to their respective organizations. DB2 is a registered trademark of the IBM Corporation. IBM is also a registered trademark. The DB2Night show is being recorded. Your participation may be recorded via contributions. If any, you consent to any all content being recorded being ongoing participation. Mind your manners. Recordings or derivative works thereof will be made available as replays, blogs, late show materials. Copyright 2019, DBIL rights reserved. Martin, how long did that take me?
13 seconds.
That was great. What a good use of time. Tonight's show, a few quick announcements. We'll get on to that breaking news from the Toronto Lab. We'll have some polling questions for you, and we'll wrap up like we always do. Some upcoming shows that you want to know about. 21st of June, it's the season number 10 finale, a 3-hour problem determination class with Pavel Schuster, IBM. He gave us a great little problem determination presentation back in January, and people loved it. It was super popular. And so as our final show of not only season 10, but our final show ever, the last show of the DB2Night show, it's a 3-hour class. Don't miss that. It'll be a lot of fun. On the mainframe database side, Martin has on June 14th, optimizing data transformation with DB2 for ZOS and DB2 Analytics Accelerator lined up for us. He's got a great guest for that. Congratulations, Mr. David Albin with Anaco in Galveston, Texas. He's a winner of a $25 Amazon gift certificate. He was in our show number 214, all about iDoug with Mike Inman and Dustin Ratliff, iDoug volunteers. That replay is still available, of course. If you missed it, go back and take a look, and you can learn about the upcoming iDoug conference in Charlotte, North Carolina, June 2 through 6. You probably want to go to that conference. It's going to be exciting, given the news that Kelly will share with us today. We're recycling this giggle of the day. It's just kind of fun. Looking at cat treadmills here. For the cat lovers in the crowd, this is how cats exercise. Turns out, according to the State of the DB2 Universe study, that DB2 people prefer dogs. I'm just going to let that out now. A little bit of information. Yep, DB2 people prefer dogs over cats and birds and other four-legged things. Okay, let's get Kelly on. Breaking news, breaking DB2 news with Kelly Rodger. Kelly, I'm going to make you the presenter.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Clicking a button. Well, thanks for joining us. We planned this a long time ago, didn't we? It was back in
it was
January.
More than, quite a while since my last visit. So this is great. Quite an honor to be here as you're nearing the end. All right, so you can see my screen, hopefully fine.
And we see it in presentation mode. That's great.
Perfect. All right, so yes, breaking news from me. Thanks for the introduction. Since we seem to like disclaimers, we'll just read this word by word. Should take about 13 seconds. There we go. And more notices. We will talk about upcoming releases, about upcoming functionality, performance. The release times for the functionality to be determined, can be changed without notice, of course. Performance numbers, your mileage may vary, all the usual disclaimers and caveats.
Yes, sir.
I do want to give a couple of acknowledgements to some of these people who are probably not even aware that they contributed to my content today. So John, Jessica, Carrie, Paul, Mike Roken, and George Backlars, all of whom either explicitly gave me, or I borrowed, stole, or they otherwise inspired a bunch of the slides and content you'll see here today. So last time I was here, which I think was 6 months or so ago, we were in the middle of 11.1, rolling out new functional modification packs. 11.1 had introduced the notion of a continuous delivery model into the DB2 family, where instead of pure fix packs and the occasional fix pack, which included function, as we had done for years and years, we were trying to be upfront and honest and very clearly indicate which releases include functional modifications, which include pure fixes and APARs and security patches. And then we had interim fixes purely focused on quality and security with a very small number of carefully selected patches. And we got up to 11.1 mod 4, or fix pack 4. There was more recently interim fix number 1 of that. And we will have more releases of the 11.1 stream for years to come. 11.1 also introduced the concept of an interim fix. As I was mentioning, the plan, and continues to be the plan today, is that roughly every 2 to 3 months in between the mod and fix pack updates on only the most recent deployment, we're not sending out interim fixes on the older releases, we would ship out an iFix. These are a little bit different than fix packs. If you're not already aware, these don't include every APAR that we have a fix for, or every issue is not addressed, but we do carefully hand select a critical set of updates that we believe most, if not all, customers will want in their environment that they can trust. Where a fix pack may include 100 or several hundred improvements, these iFixes are a very small number. We're talking about low double-digit number of very critical updates. The DB2 family. Probably most of the people on the call today are familiar with many or all of these products. There are relationships between all of these. You have a choice these days with any of the DB2 family of hybrid data management solutions to control where you deploy, how you deploy, how much simplicity you're interested in, how much control you want, and where you want your data to reside. You may have seen a slide like this before showing the relationships. So there, in the broader DB2 Common SQL engine, we have DB2 11, of course, and there are some other family product lines based on the DB2 code base. There's also a DB2 warehouse product line and a couple of other family product lines based on that code. What's new this year, what 2019 is largely about, is bringing the family even closer together. 11.1 did a lot, brought these product lines very close together, and introduced the modification levels that we talked about before. But 11.1 has gone off, and it is fully compatible across the mod and fixpack updates. You can implement, for example, PureScale online rolling updates, go back and forth between fixpacks and mod levels. Other than some exceptions where you take advantage of a new feature, these fixpacks were fully compatible. Meanwhile, some of the other product lines, some of the cloud offerings and appliance offerings have gone ahead and introduced new functionality. They would have had all of the functionality that existed in 11.1 and all of its mod packs, but they also had some new things, and they had introduced some new capability that was not fully compatible with the 11.1 code base. And so what we're doing now, and from now on, is to try to reunite the family completely together on a single code base, a single common SQL engine. There are many goals, many reasons we want to do this, but we think that the value to everyone here and to all the application environments is that you have operational consistency. You can rely on the same security, same encryption capabilities being available everywhere. You can have the same integrated workload management, monitoring interfaces, problem determination that Pavel will talk about soon, and broad compatibility across the entire ecosystem. No matter where you choose to deploy and how you choose to deploy your systems, you can test once, you can run everywhere, and you can get mostly complete compatibility across the family product lines. Our goal is that you can write applications. You can write them once, you can run them anywhere. And one of the biggest benefits, I think, of uniting the family this way is reducing the latency between features being available in one product line and being available elsewhere, right? We're talking to customers these days who have experienced something new in DB2 Warehouse on Cloud, for example, or in the appliance, and asking, can I use that feature on-prem? Is that available in 11.1 mod 3 or whatever they were on at the time? And we say, no, we're just, we're 6 months behind. We'll get there. And so with the introduction of 11.5 and 11.50 and the upcoming releases, we will greatly reduce the latency between features appearing in one product and appearing in all of the products. We also want to have common programming model and interfaces. We'll talk later about languages and new client features that are coming out. And of course, broader compatibility across many of our other data sources and federation capabilities. So we have a broad DB2 LUW strategy to focus on core database capabilities, the resiliency and security that everyone should be used to. We're trying to introduce compatibility features across all of the product families, including external table support, a number of new availability and PureScale enhancements, and of course, performance. Right? Performance is critical in so many environments. There are many new improvements, some of which already exist in cloud and some which will be completely new. Also hardware support, platform support. We'll talk about both the hardware and operating systems that upcoming releases will support and run well on. And a developer focus, and a reinvigorated developer focus on new languages, new development environments, new front ends for developing modern applications. And of course, cognitive capabilities. I'm sure there will be lots more shared at upcoming IDUGs and other venues, but there's lots coming in the neighborhood of AI and ML and cognitive capabilities. So vNext, you probably heard of rumors, or maybe better than rumors, that there's a new release coming out soon, and that is true, and I think it snuck out. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not.
It was even on your prior slide. It was on your previous slides.
I know. It sneaks out. I saw it on Twitter. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?
Hardly.
So I think we can put the questions to rest about will it be 11.2 or 12 or something else. The intention is this will be 11.5. It is planned to be released in the middle of this year, although it may seem hard to believe, for many of us, DB2 11.1 is going to be 3 years old this year, very, very soon, in fact.
That's a birthday party I'm going to go to.
Yeah, it should be a good one. So 11.5 will continue this continuous delivery paradigm. We will have modification packs. We will do a slow trickle instead of the past historic view that a new major release is a big bang, a big gulp of new function that is high risk and should be approached very cautiously. What we're doing now is we're putting out small bites. We're going to say we're going to continually and incrementally improve the product across all product lines. And I think this is maybe one of the interesting aspects of 11.5 compared to the difference between jumping from 9.1 to 9.5 or 10.1 to 10.5 in the past. A lot of the capability and a lot of the code and algorithms and new features that will be arriving in the on-prem version and in some of the containers very soon is actually already in the field. It's been in the field for some time, and much of that capability has already been deployed in appliances. And if you're using any of the DB2 on cloud, DB2 warehouse on cloud products, you may have already seen it and experienced it. And so we don't think this is as big a leap as people are used to. But for on-prem customers, if you're on 11.1 or an older release, it's a very significant new milestone for us. Over time, of course, all of the product lines have their own release schedules and cadence, and their particular customers and environments have their own needs that are unique. But all DB2 family members will move up to the new level. They're all at their own points in their particular life cycle. And as I said, we are aiming to reduce the feature latency and have all of the family members move up on a relatively stable cadence from now on. The on-premise product does have some unique needs. It's the one place where you get PureScale today. It's the one place where you get certain support for operating system platforms that doesn't exist everywhere else. As soon as features are ready to go for that complete environment, then these features and capabilities will show up in the on-prem product as well. Platforms. So platforms we're going to support, and this is a grossly simplified chart, I will admit. Started trying to make something that will be explicit and really answer all of the questions that might arise, and it gets very, very complicated. But we'll keep it high level for now, and the online SPCR records, of course, will give all of the gory details, and I know some of my colleagues are preparing slides for future IDEGs that will also try to dive into the details here. We will, of course, support Power, Power 7, Power 8, Power 9, Intel and x86 architectures, and Z Linux architectures on the hardware end. AIX support, of course. There are particular technology levels and service packs that I won't get into here, but 7.1 and 7.2 and beyond on the AIX front. SLES Linux 12.3 will be the minimum, and we'll support newer releases than that. RHEL Linux, of course, 7.5 will be the bare minimum, and we'll support beyond that, and Ubuntu 16.4. On the Windows side, we have Windows 2012 and 2016 out of the box, and the Mac. Maybe we shouldn't get too excited about the Mac down there. It's not a Mac server. But the DS driver client will come out on Mac OS as it always has. I should mention PureScale, of course, has very specific requirements. And what we're talking about here are the non-PureScale environments. The PureScale requirements look similar, but as always, where non-PureScale environments, we will say we will support this operating system release and anything newer in that release. And PureScale, we do specify very specific versions that are tested and certified. Some other changes to our base platform support that are coming out. Sun and Solaris will not be included, at least not initially. Power Big Endian Linux, which has existed for a little while, we're going to end that. It will be still Power, but in the Little Endian configuration. And CentOS, also not supported for on-prem. Some other fairly significant changes that I think we can let out of the bag here. So the additions and licensing model of DB2 going forward, we're looking to greatly simplify these, where we have a very large number of additions and different metrics and pricing and so on. Currently, the plan and you know, I think some of our colleagues, John Land and other people in offering management, and I'm sure they will highlight this at iDogs, and I think they've talked about this already elsewhere. What they're looking to do is to simplify down to three different packages, where there will be one download, one DB2 server, which contains all functionality, all features, fully enabled so that you can do development, you can do work with your departmental work group, and you can go scale all the way up into large enterprise, PureScale, and massively parallel systems. What's different are some of the metrics and some of the hardware, core, and memory limitations. Most people will start out, in fact, all people will start out by downloading what is effectively the free community licensed one, and then you apply whatever license you are entitled to and have purchased. The downloads will be available through all of the usual locations, IBM.com, Passport Advantage, Docker Hub, Fix Central, as always. And then you simply apply the license that applies to your environment. There are, of course, you know, one of the questions that come out, what about my non-production use? I just want to use this to develop my app, or I want to share this in my departmental work group. You know, I'm not looking to run my enterprise on this, and I don't want to have the same costs. Well, that has been thought of. There will be, there's a plan for non-production licensing to be available as a separate part number and with some different metrics. So you have a little more control and can control your costs. The advanced license, so we have community, standard, and advanced. The advanced license will be available through the HDMP, the hybrid data management platform offering of which gives you very flexible pricing and flexibility on how you spend your dollars. So let's talk a little bit about the vNext. I guess I should just replace all the slides and call them 11.5. The vNext roadmap. So a lot of the features that we'll cover in some high-level detail here today are already available in the DB2 warehouse families. In some form, there are some enhancements still coming and coming in the future, but much of this is available. So things like external tables, you know, accessing external files as external tables, grooming for columnar tables, reduction in logging for certain workloads, and schema level authorizations, which we'll be rolling out actually in the future. There are adaptive WLM and monitoring improvements, and an interesting new feature, advanced log space management that is coming out as a proof of technology at this point, and will be enhanced in the future. And many PureScale enhancements, including notably support for currently committed isolation levels. So external tables, if you're not familiar with external tables support already, you know, which is a compatibility item for members across the DB2 family of products, it allows you to access files from within a SQL statement, just like it, or similar at least to it being a traditional DB2 table. You can load from or unload to external files through a single interface. You can also perform some one-time queries. And this is already available in the DB2 warehouse and some associated products. And there's a very detailed online documentation of its support and syntax, but suffice it to say you can access local and remote data sources from a wide variety of different sources and have support for CSV and delimited files. Here's an example of syntax, how you might actually take advantage of external tables today, right? You can create an external table with a usual table definition, and then you point it at a file, describe the delimiter, and do inserts and do selects from these external files, very much like they are DB2 tables. columnar table grooming, if you're not familiar with this. So, when automatic dictionary creation is used as data is being inserted, of course, the dictionary has not been built when the data is initially being inserted. And so at the beginning of the insert range, there's some unencoded data. And what's being introduced is a grooming capability where after the fact, DB2 will come back automatically and apply the dictionary to the initially uncompressed region, save you space, and get better compression right across all of your data to some significant benefit in some environments. And the reduced logging. So reduced logging is very interesting. You can think of this much like you might think of a not logged initially table of that's been available for many years, but slightly different. So your table contents in this case are preserved during rollback and crash recovery and roll forwards to end of backups. But what's new now is that it may be possible to do very large inserts in a single transaction without running out of log space, or at least without running out of log space for much, much longer. It's also not a universal table property. It's not something that you set on the table, but it is automatic. It is the default and only behavior today in DB2 Warehouse on the cloud, and it's automatically detected when you're doing things like inserts from subselects from external tables, upstate statements, ingesting data, or doing merges. There's some fine print, of course, on this. So there is no reduced logging capability on row organized tables. It also does not exist for indexes. And if you have unique key constraints or primary key constraints that are being enforced, the effectiveness of this is reduced, but it still has significant benefit. So as one example, one of my colleagues did some tests varying whether or not reduced logging was enabled or not, and whether or not the constraints were being enforced or not. And you can see here that with enforced constraints, 40 gigabytes of raw data, and again, your mileage may vary. This was their particular sample data. When they enabled reduced logging, they were able to double the amount of data they can insert in a single transaction. With constraints not enforced, even without reduced logging, they were able to achieve a greater insert rate. But when they combined the two, the benefit is massive, right? Up to 4 terabytes in this particular case of data inserted in a single transaction without blowing up the logs. Really, really fantastic. 4K sector size. So there's some changes coming. I know this was rolled out as a proof of technology a while ago, and some people may be experimenting with it already. It's optional. It can be turned on. There's a register variable to turn it on. Some caveats, DMS raw containers will not be supported. And there are some changes. So there's some internal contents deep within backup images and load copy files that were traditionally designed to fit on a single sector, which will actually grow now to 4K. So you may see some size increases, incremental size increases to those particular files. But the performance benefits when you move to modern devices that either have the capability of supporting 4K or traditional 512K sectors and emulating either or even newer devices which only support 4K sector sizes. The benefits here can be substantial. There are some performance penalties to be aware of, perhaps. Very small lob data that is stored already on disk in a 512 byte traditional sector would have some performance overhead as the new 4K sector is fetched. And if restoring or recovering through load copy images that were created before you enabled 4K support for the change in sector size, there's some additional performance overhead to read those old images, but they will work just fine. There are a number of other availability improvements coming in the future. Some will come out in 11.5 GA coming up this year, and some will come out in future mod packs, and that is true of everything we're talking about today. There are some improvements to runtime rollback performance. So already out in the future, we have some I/O optimizations that were available during recovery and undo. The use of those I/O optimizations is being expanded, so we'll apply now to rollback situations as well. The biggest gain, the target for this, is long-running transactional workloads. Also mirrored logs. So mirrored logs, I/O performance has been optimized very significantly so that both mirrored logs are written to concurrently and asynchronously, and with or without encryption, you will get benefits. We should talk about data virtualization. So DB2 data virtualization is really, it can be thought of as the next generation of federation. We have more data sources and updated data sources coming available now and soon. It's already available in some of the product lines today. We're moving more and more drivers to integrate with these more modern sources, SQL and NoSQL based sources from a variety of form factors on premise and cloud, some open source DBMS systems as well. And many of these, if not all of these, will be integrated directly into the DB2 installer. All right, let's talk about one of the more interesting new features that's coming out soon. So in 11.5, the plan right now is to have a tech preview. So not for production use, but as a technical preview, and we'll talk about some of the caveats here. Advanced Log Space Management, or ALSM. And I'm sure one of my colleagues is going to do a much deeper dive into this at an upcoming iDoug, but there are certainly some environments that will be very interested. The goal here is to reduce transactions from encountering log full issues. And if you think of scenarios where you have some very, very long running transactions that also have a very low logging frequency, such as loads or long create index, which may create one log record or a small number of log records and then hold the transaction open for many minutes, many hours. If your database is configured with archive logging, the other logging configurations will not see a benefit. Then you will, let's skip ahead, here we go. So what will happen in the future, and if you try this out in the very near future, the log records for these very long running active transactions will now be split out from the traditional log files in the active log path into other files. They'll be copied out. That will allow the active log files to actually be closed, sent off to archive, and reuse, while still guaranteeing and allowing all the usual semantics for correctness that everyone is used to, but without filling up the active logs path and without having to resort to something like infinite logging that we've had for a while, where your recovery or undo would have had to fetch large numbers of logs from archive. We'll be able to handle that much more locally. So as I said, this is not yet supported in production. We're treating this as a proof of technology. It will not be enabled by default, but there's a switch to turn it on if you want to give it a try. There are some caveats and current limitations that you probably should be aware of. So online backup, support for extracting and including files inside the backup image will come in the future, at least planned in the future. Crash recovery and roll forward right now will not use the extraction log files. Those will come in the future. So if you do start playing with this and experimenting, and you see a behavior for online backup or crash recovery or roll forward that you're not expecting, just be aware that there's still work to be done in that neighborhood. PureScale, lots of exciting news for PureScale environments, including faster load performance on partitioned tables, greatly improved free space management in PureScale clusters. I saw a demo here myself of this just a couple of weeks ago, and the improvement is really terrific. If you have a PureScale environment where inserts are primarily done on some members and deletes are done on other members, in the past, the management and reuse of the free space in the overall PureScale system was not optimal. That has been greatly improved, and you'll see some reductions in the storage required if that's how your environment operates. There's also some improvements in CF recovery time, particularly if you have a public Ethernet failure scenario. And if you're in an environment that is particularly security conscious and you need to enable host firewalls, for instance, the requirement that DB2 and in particular PureScale has had for a while that we would communicate between members using random ports can now be solved. There is a switch where you can set a specific range of ports that DB2 will use and control a little bit at least of what DB2 will do under the covers so that you can open those ports in your firewall while keeping the rest of your system secure. That will actually now be possible. I think some of these I mentioned already. So currently committed semantics in PureScale will now be available, which is great. On the online index creation in PureScale is enabled by default, as is extent reclaim in PureScale. It's been available in non-PureScale for quite a while. GPFS, IBM Spectrum Scale, version 5 will now be supported in PureScale environments, and much more. Other performance tweaks and administration tweaks, including GDPC, so geographically dispersed PureScale clusters can be configured much more simply. There's some automated configuration of public networks for the CF that will help if you're setting up a GDPC environment, hopefully improving your ongoing maintenance costs and the cost to get up and running in that kind of environment. Here we have some details of the currently committed semantics that I'll include in the slides and we will share later. We don't need to read through all of these, but if you're interested in that in the PureScale environment, please pay attention as there are some caveats, but we're really now bringing completeness that wasn't there before for currently committed in PureScale systems. All right, SQL enhancements.
Hey, Kelly.
So there are quite a number of, yes.
Is this a good point to take a quick break?
Sure.
All right, it's time for that commercial break thing that we do. And we need to ask our polling
All right,
question.
no problem.
Okay, let's ask our good-looking audience some polling questions. First polling question, what DB2 versions are you currently running? Our good-looking audience is responding. I love it. There's still people running 9.5 or earlier. Someday they'll get it up and move along. Just need that application enablement. Oh, wait, that data doesn't really matter anymore, so we're not upgrading. No, it's not an important application. All the excuses. Going once, going twice, closing the poll, sharing the results. And 83% on 11.1, 69% 10.5, 23% 10.1, 26% on 9.7. That was a great release. 6% 9.5 or earlier. Next polling question. What operating systems are you running in production? Yes, I know there's a few others. I noticed that Sun Solaris made a comeback, and then just a few slides ago, Solaris is going away again. What happened there? Is there a backstory?
Yes. I'm sure there is a backstory that we probably don't want to get into here, but yeah, we was resurrected. It dropped very briefly and then resurrected in 11.1, and yeah, that's a relatively small fraction of the market, a very important part of the market, and we will continue to have 11.1 support for that and continue to upgrade and get mods and security fixes out for quite a while. So they do have options, but the future 11.5 releases will not contain support.
Okay, here's what people said about their operating systems. And It blows me away. You know, we've been doing this show for 10 years and AIX was always the winner. But in recent months, x86 Linux has dominated 76%. AIX now only 67%, 27% Windows, 33% Z Linux. That's inspirational. 9% Linux on Power. Let's throw out another polling question. Are you using DB2 native encryption? Yes, not yet. Evaluating, no. We'll let our polling questions go until 80% or more of the audience votes, or about 33 seconds, whichever comes first. Giddy up, wiggle your mice, click on your choices. Can't say my response is encrypted, that's just funny. Going once, going twice, closing the poll, sharing the results. 32% yes, 59% no, 9% are thinking about it. Okay, another polling question. Are you using DB2 in that fluffy cloud thing? The State of the DB2 Universe study, the results of which will make their debut at IDUG, we had some interesting findings in DB2 in the cloud. Hope to see you in my presentation on Tuesday at IDUG. That's a little IDUG teaser. Oh, if you don't have a badge yet, get out to that IDUG site and register. Okay, going once, going twice, closing the poll, sharing the results. AWS Cloud has picked up some responses. 9% IBM Cloud, 6% another cloud, 52% considering in the future, 15% simply say no way, not for us. And I have one more for you. Are you using PureScale? People are thinking about it. Wait, let me log on to my DB2 and see if we're running PureScale. Going once, going twice. Closing the poll, sharing the results. 12% yes, 24% not yet, but thinking about it, 65% no need. Don't need that availability and performance. Okay, close that up. All done with that for now. A quick commercial break from today's show sponsor, DBI Software, offering smarter tools for smarter people. Some DBI Pure Feet top advantages. Very low overhead, meaningful trend charts with history plotted on them, advanced index benefit analysis. That'll show you which indexes produce the most value. Predictive index impact analysis. In version 7, a new workbench lets you modify recommended indexes or create your own. That's really cool. Focus on relative weights and costs, help you find real root cause problems in just 2 clicks. There's very robust, extensible lights out alerting. And Q4, later this year, vNext is going to include drop index impact analysis, I'm told by DBI. DBI invites you to see a demo, and you can earn a $15 Amazon gift card. Just watch the demo and have a chat with a DBI rep, and they will thank you with a $15 Amazon gift card. Just go to dbisoftware.com/demo-php. And finally, from DBI, an invitation to visit their booth. DBI will be at the IDUG North America show. Visit booth 15 for a chance to win AirPods and get a sneak peek at the upcoming new Web Suite product featuring new interactive performance dashboards and advanced analysis tools. And with that, we're back to Kelly.
All right, thanks.
Make
So
you
SQL compatibility items. As with
presenter
else we're
again.
discussing today. Oh, I lost my screen.
There we are.
Screen.
And
All back? All right.
John Lind has joined. I thought I'd let you know he's joined in case you need to call on him.
Excellent. Yep. Yeah, a special surprise guest, John Lind from our offering management team, just in case there was questions or clarification needed around. I'm sorry, John, we got to it before you got here, but the new packages and additions covered a little while ago.
Okay, great. Yeah, like I said, we're doing a lot of simplification with 11.5 announcement and looking for getting a lot of our clients the capabilities and all the functionality of the DB2 server. So, yeah.
All right, excellent. Thanks for dropping in. Okay, so for the SQL compatibility items, and as I mentioned, for just about everything we've been talking about today, depending on your form factor and product line, some of these are available already. Some will be coming when 11.5 comes out, and some will be coming in the future, in future modification updates. We have some new interesting ease of use and ease of application scriptability options for creating and dropping tables, some Oracle compatibility library functions. We won't go into great depth, but I have a little bit of information on that. External table support, of course, that we already touched on, and NZ SQL support. My slides, there we go. All right. Create table if not exists. Some new create table syntax, which is great if you are scripting an environment where the table may or may not exist at the time that your script runs, and all you really want to do is ignore error messages if the table already exists, in which case you can add this new clause to the statement. If the table already exists, then it will just return success, and you won't have to worry about handling error messages and wondering what's happened. Likewise, there's a way to ignore failures for dropping a table. If you're scripting in the table may have already been dropped or not, and you can't be sure at that particular point in your application, you can use the new if exists clause. The table will be dropped if it exists. Otherwise, or either way, you will end with a successful success message. Columnar. Columns of a columnar table have a few new data types. They can now include clobs and blobs, DB clobs and N clobs, and those objects can be in line in a way similar to what you have in row organized tables. We have a large list of supported data types here down at the bottom. The notable exception being XML columns that are not currently supported in a columnar world. And there are a couple of new routines, quote ident for compatibility across the family and with other products that can allow you to return a string that you can use as an identifier in any SQL statement, or you can use as a string constant in a SQL statement, or quote literal down at the bottom here. Some very useful, simple routines. There are a handful of Oracle compatibility library enhancements being worked on. DBMS application info, DBMS lock, and UTL raw. And I think we have some details here. So the DBMS application info includes lots of capability inside. And I think in the interest of time, we'll zoom through this, but it'll be in the deck if people want to read more details. And some of these will be coming in future modification packs. Likewise, the DBMS lock module includes some compatibility items that you see here that we'll also skip through in the interest of time, but I think some environments will find quite useful. And UTL raw for low-level bitwise operation comparison, simple length, substring, and so on operations on various data types. And a number of cast operations, all right, to and from different types, also again for Oracle compatibility. Client level enhancements. So on the front end, and this one's available now. One of the things that we're looking at doing, and hopefully we'll do more of in the future, is we're putting this out on public GitHub. You can go there today to the IBM DB organization and acquire Golang for DB2 on the front end, and there are more details available on that site how to do it. And here's a very simple example here on the screen. That is already out. Go have a look. There are also many other enhancements, some CLI, call-level interface updates, significant improvements for environments using the DS driver and .NET environments. Quite a number of CLI driver enhancements, including the ability for CLI load to access data through the external tables interface, support for Microsoft's ODBC administrator, and workload balancing and automatic client reroute algorithms improvements that you'll find interesting if you use those features. And .NET, so some updates here to .NET. So we have support now for the Identity Framework 2.1, some updates to Microsoft Azure support, and Visual Studio Code extensions. We're getting into the more modern IDEs and development environments, and I think there'll be more of this to come in the future. Lots of JDBC and Java enhancements, and this is a busy slide, I realize. We won't read through all of the details here, but there are many new configuration possibilities, for ease of use in a DS driver environment, some additional properties that can be set to tune your environment, and some family compatibility here with DB2 and ZOS. Monitoring and WLM, and I hope I'm not jumping on Pavel's toes too much, so we won't dive into all the details here. There's some statement simplifications here. Now, if you want to drop, you have a superclass and several subclasses, you can now simply run, disable drop your parent superclass. And in previous releases, in historic terms, there are a lot of statements that you would have to do to clean up an environment that you've configured that way. And now it can be greatly simplified. And there are a number of other monitoring enhancements. We have new monitoring metrics that will help you look at the details of failure rates of particular SQL statements from your package cache. New monitoring interfaces, new columns being added, lots of new routines being added to help you monitor and get more details on your system performance, application behavior. Many new table functions tried in providing you direct access into workload management statistics, and looking at all of the activity of your system in significantly more detail than you've been able to in the past. Just as one example, I'll dive into a little bit here. There are a number of new columns outlined here that you can get from the mongad package cache statement table function to be able to look at particular statements, their failure rates, and help to diagnose what is happening, right? So that you can improve your system's behavior. All right, so beyond the base, 11.5.0, of course, there will be an 11.5.1 and 2 and so on. Adaptive workload management. This is currently the default in the DB2 warehouse family of products, and we expect will be introduced later as an optional configuration in other product lines. There's still some more validation, and some user-defined capabilities will also be coming in future releases. This is the next generation of DB2's workload management, right? The goal here, of course, is to ensure system stability and responsiveness with zero tuning, which I guess is always the goal, but we're getting closer to realizing that. And of course, we want to keep the system very well utilized, but you don't want it to become overcommitted. As always, that can have extreme mental effects. And so this will allow you to schedule your jobs appropriately and keep them fair and really look at the responsiveness of your applications. In the new WLM configuration, incoming work gets guided into what's termed lanes, right? Based on the anticipated resource consumption and the duration of that workload. And each lane is defined a specific resource allotment, right? You want your system to be predictable and sort memory, CPU, the duration is all considered. And then the scheduling of each lane is based on a dynamic view, looks at historic data of execution in that lane, and then new work becomes admitted based on the available resources and the latency expected in that class of work. So as examples, and of course, performance numbers, your mileage may vary. In the performance tests that we've seen so far, analytical workloads are all at par or better with the new adaptive WLM compared with traditional workloads, and some very significant gains here. The two bars on the right are very small. I forget their actual numbers, but down into the single digits. Very, very small differences there. But where it helps a lot. Also coming in some product lines in the future, schema level authorization capability outlined here, a number of different access controls. And much, much more. We're looking at rolling out in the future much faster database activation times, which I think will be very exciting. Format binary for table support. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the cognitive capabilities in ML and AI, there's graph capability to do some real-time visualizations and modeling of your data. Go out on Developer Works. Even today, there are a couple of beta tools that may be interesting. One for natural language queries, right? Think of the way you interface with your Google Home or your HomePod. Also an augmented data explorer that you can actually start experimenting with today. And as I'm sure you'll hear lots more about at iDoug, lots of work going on in an ML optimizer space that looks very, very promising. All right, how to get started. If you're looking at getting started today, you can go out the DB2 Developer C Edition, which is already out, not for the new release, but for the existing releases. It's a fully functional DB2 database server, includes all the support. You can roll out and experiment with PureScale and DPF and Glue and whatever you want. As we mentioned before, it does have limits the number of cores and amount of memory, and you just simply need to apply licenses to get beyond those limitations. And it can be downloaded. You can get in a container, you can get in an ICP for data, lots of different form factors. In its base form as an unsupported, community-supported, non-warranted edition. And then you apply licenses on top of that if you want. There are also containers, some pretty wildly popular container downloads on the Docker store. So we have the developer edition for 11.1.4 already out. We update this routinely as we update the traditional on-prem products. This is certified by Docker, and you can use it as is, or you can create customized containers based on top of this and apply licenses, if you like, directly to that container for production use or whatever your needs may be. And we'd like you to keep in touch. So the roadmap, even for a lot of what we talked about today, is publicly available, and I'm not sure if everyone realizes this. The link at the bottom for the AHA roadmap outlines at least the major functionality and features, and I know John is very interested in this, as are many of the development teams here, and interested in your feedback. There are ways to contribute back and vote your own ideas on the DB2 Ideas portal. that's available now. And also the early access program. So if you want to get a taste of what might be coming in 11.5.0 and even the modification packs beyond that, you can register for DB2's early access program and get your hands on the code and start experimenting with it today. Of course, also not supported, and it's a beta, but it's actually quite good.
Let's remind everyone that if you have any questions, use the GoToWebinar question answer tool. Get your questions out there so that Kelly and John can address them. Kelly, is that it? Did you really give us 70 slides in 50 minutes?
We may have skipped a couple, but yes.
That's
not bad.
That's a high performance presentation. All right, well, good.
That's what we aim for.
We've got a question that's come in. Let's have a look. When is 11.5 getting released? I think you said mid-2019 for a fuzzy answer.
I did. I'm not sure if John wants to be more specific than that, but soon, mid-2019 is the target.
Exactly. I'll be a little bit more specific. So look for an announcement at the IDUG conference that's coming up in just over a week.
Yep,
so
that's
read between the lines.
Based on past experience, my guess, and it's just Scott's guess, June 30th, if June 30th doesn't fall on a weekend.
And for everyone that's on the call, we'll just make it very clear. We're announcing at IDUG on June 4th, and the code will be targeted to be available by the end of the month.
There we go.
Or it has to be available by the end of the month. Put that way.
Does
Scott's gonna put a wager on that, okay?
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the last business day of the month. Here's another question. Probably John can field this. Does the community license provide support?
The DB2 download that comes with the developer C license or the community license, as you want to call it, does not provide the ability for a client to call in to IBM for support. Obviously, you can go on our community pages and support pages and get all the support information from those pages, but you just can't call in for a support issue. Now, look in the next week or so when we do announce, we are planning to provide a support option for that community edition that will allow customers to purchase support.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, so you can start off with that great free edition, and once you want to be able to call in and get access to Kelly and the development team and all the great support people at IBM, we've got an option for you.
Okay, it's good to have options. And I'm watching the question queue, and as we're watching the question queue, it's time for the wrap-up slide. You are, of course, invited to watch replays. We ask you to complete our post-show survey. We thank our attendees for joining us today. We thank Kelly and also John for joining to field any questions. And I have one last polling question. I'm expecting 100% on this. Did you learn anything today? Since this is breaking news, unless we've got other IBM Lab people on today's show, this ought to be 100%. Did you learn anything today? Any other questions from our good-looking audience? Going once, going twice, closing the poll, sharing the results. I'm doing really good at my predictions. 100% of our audience learned something today. That's
good job for Friday.
That's great. Okay, and are there any more questions? Yes. Any plans for IBM to make the Docker file code open source?
So I don't know what that means to be, quote, open source. So the Docker container is fully free to download. And so I guess what would be the open source aspect of it? Obviously, we're not going to be able to provide the actual code for DB2, but other than that, it's open source.
Okay, the next question,
Yeah,
would you
curious to know more details about what that means.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll see if they ask a follow-up question. It says, would you please share a link for HADR automation with Docker? Do you have any links on that or additional information? If you do, you could email me.
I'm sure
and
they
I
can get it. And
yeah,
if
you can get
send it
something,
to you, or if they
send it to me and I'll put it in the replay blog.
Okay, very good.
We can get a link for that out. Next question. How can we get the latest Docker file source code?
Well, you can get the latest Docker image directly from the Docker Hub.
Okay. And we got a thank you, so that's great. And I think that's the end. It's time to let everybody know that today's show is sponsored by DBI Software. DBI is your trusted partner for breakthrough DB2 performance solutions that deliver invaluable results for organizations having the most demanding requirements and discriminating preferences. Thank you again, Kelly, for your great presentation today. John, thanks for getting on to field the hard questions. And we'll see you at IDUG. It's going to be a great conference.
Yeah, indeed.
Have a good week. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.